Hello there, all you friends, true believers, and newcomers alike, and welcome to another Superfly Comics Guy haul video for the month of November 2024. Although technically I picked all these books up in October, I'm just really late in putting this video out. We'll start with the one deluxe edition I have here, and then we'll move on to the three omnibuses in ascending order of my personal excitement for them. As always, these are not full detailed reviews of these books, these are just overviews, first impressions, brief flip through, build quality, that kind of thing. So if you enjoy the video at any point, you know how to show it, and feel free to leave your own thoughts down in the comments below about any of these books. But with that out of the way, kick back, relax, and let's dive into some comics. So as I mentioned, we're starting with the deluxe edition first, and that is Batman the Cult, the deluxe edition. Let's dive into this sucker. There we are, everybody. There is the dust jacket to the Batman the Cult deluxe edition. Now, I don't believe there are any DM covers available for this, but correct me if I'm wrong. Let's have a look at the spine there. Batman the Cult, the deluxe edition, Starlin, Wrightson, Ray, and then the DC logo on the side there. On the back, ooh, some very nice artwork there. We have a cover price of $40 in the US, $54, excuse me, in Canadian. And this collects the, I believe it's a 4-part graphic novel, Batman the Cult, and that came out in 1988, if I'm not mistaken. Again, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong at any point. Let's have a look under the dust jacket here. Oof, there we go. Oh, look at that. All right. You can see Batman practicing his Houdini escape routine there. There's the spine for you once again. And in the back, got Robin. Okay. So I'll take a look at the binding situation and I'll be right back. Okay, so my hunch was right. We have glued binding here, so I didn't need to stretch the spine in that case. Hence, you're not really seeing much of an eye, but that's okay. This is a pretty small book, as I mentioned. The paper quality seems pretty good. It seems like they're using this glossy type of paper, and I generally prefer glossy paper to the matte, rough feeling paper that DC sometimes uses, but feels pretty good. Let me show you the board design one more time, because yeah, it is a wraparound. That does look quite nice when you open it up like that. And we can take a little bit of a flip through the book as well, just to give you an idea of the kind of art you'll be getting in here. Now, I've heard, it's not just about the art actually, I've heard great things about this story. It's just that I'm not too familiar with it, so I can't comment that much on it. Burn this book. Oof. That'll drive the omnibus collecting community a little crazy. Let's take a little bit of a flip through. Wow. Okay, so immediately very colorful artwork. That vibe kind of reminds me of the original coloring that was used on the Killing Joke. When did Killing Joke come out? Would it have been before this book or after? It's definitely around that time period, late 80s. But yeah, that's what it's reminding me of. This is the first appearance of Deacon Blackfire as an antagonist. So Batman is going up against some kind of crazy cult in this story, hence the name. But yeah, I don't really know too much about Deacon Blackfire. I really only know him from the Arkham Knight video game. God, I love that video game so much. Anyway, getting distracted. He's, honestly, to me anyway, he seems a little bit like Ra's al Ghul, because he has his own cult of followers. His lifespan is longer, I believe, than a normal human's. There may also be some element of mind control there happening with his cult and everything, but that's really all I know. But God, look at this artwork. It's very unique, right? It's, wow. Well, that alone was worth the hype. That's an oddly phallic-looking monument. Is that supposed to be a monument of himself? I don't know. If I started a cult of people, I don't know if I'd want to shape my monument like that for obvious reasons. But yeah, that's this book out of the way. So let's move on to the omnibuses. So the first of 3 omnibuses in this haul, we have one of the biggest gap fillers in the entire omnibus collecting hobby. Ultimate Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 4. This is a significant one, so let's go. There we are, my friends. Again, I took my time getting this video out, but this is a big one. Ultimate Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 4. We have the standard cover to the omnibus featured right here by Stuart Immonen. Both covers actually are done by Stuart Immonen. You can see the direct market cover right there, which features the X-Men. But I went with this one because for Volume 1, I have the Venom cover. For Volume 2, I have the Carnage cover. And one of the big moments in here is there's a little bit of another symbiote saga that happens. So I thought this one was appropriate as a cover. Let's go for, take a look at the spine here. Very nice. Volume 4. So yeah, this is big because now we have the entirety of the original Ultimate Spider-Man Peter Parker saga in omnibus format. So if you have volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the Death of Ultimate Spider-Man omnibus, then you're good to go. These will line up pretty nicely on your shelf. Oh yeah, got a cover gallery. Let's go. I like that. Cover price of $125 US, $156.25 Canadian. Oh, I forgot to mention, all the books in this haul I got from in-stock trades. So Batman the Cult I got for 52% off listed price, and then this one was, I believe, just 40% off. So this collects Ultimate Spider-Man, the 2000 series, number 112 to 133, and the annual number 3. It collects Ultimatum Spider-Man Requiem 1 and 2, and Ultimate Spider-Man, the 2009 series. This is when they did a little bit of a renumbering with this title, 1 through 15. Yeah, God, love cover galleries like that. Why do I always say color galleries? My mouth is always tempted to do that. Let's have a look under the dust jacket here. Oof, okay, so, well, you're gonna see one of my biggest gripes with this volume, or this section of the Ultimate Spider-Man series right away, and that's reflected in the artwork on this board here. Let me show you the spine. We can talk about that later, but let's just focus on what we have in front of us for now. There we are. So let me stretch this book, and then we'll take a closer look at that. There we are, guys. So gotta say, I'm not really impressed with the binding here. It's a pretty small eye. Maybe it'll loosen up a little more with some reading. And here's actually a good example of a spread page where you can see what the gutter loss looks like. It's not terrible, but again, a bigger eye could have made this situation a little bit better, show you a bit more of the art. The page quality, I gotta say, is pretty concerning right off the bat. It feels very, very thin. And I was noticing as I was stretching lots and lots of instances of page bleed. Like, it wasn't difficult to find at all. And you don't even necessarily have to be on white pages to find it. Because look, I can see artwork from the other side there. Oof. That's a really cool spread page. But I'm getting distracted from my... Wow, there's a lot of spread pages. Look at that. A little bit of page bleed there. Yeah. Not impressed with the paper quality, but all in all, the book seems to be laying over pretty well, so that's not too bad. Let me show you the board. There we are, the wraparound cover. Now, typically I like wraparound covers. can't say I'm a big fan of this one. I'm just not a fan of this style of artwork for the series. Ultimate Spider-Man, in my mind, has a very specific vibe and style to it, and this just isn't it. The exaggerated proportions and the big head and big feet on Spidey is it's just a little strange, but I'll get into that a little bit later. For now, let's just take a little bit of a flip through so I can show you what we're working with. Yeah, so as I said, this is the final missing piece to the entire Ultimate Spider-Man Peter Parker saga, the original one anyway, by Brian Michael Bendis, because then later Miles Morales comes into the picture, and that's a bit of a different story. This series will always hold a special place in my heart, just because it was the first comic run that I ever read in its entirety from start to finish, and it's really what got me into the comic hobby. So with that kind of significance, you might ask, well, why isn't it at the top of my anticipated list? Well, in my opinion, this is where the series dips pretty hard for me. Not really this first half. I do like the first half. Stuart Immonen takes the place of Mark Bagley as the series penciler for a while. And, well, it is a little bit of a different style to get used to at first. You do get used to it, and I do think he brings an interesting flair to the series. So this part is totally fine. And actually, I really like this part of the story, because if you know me, I've mentioned the Ultimate Spider-Man PlayStation 2 video game. That was a huge part of my childhood. And that video game story was, I believe, created by Brian Michael Bendis as well. He was involved in the development of that game. And that video game story was so good that they then made it canon in the comics. And that's this stuff right here, with Electro and everything, and Green Goblin comes back, and the symbiote saga between Peter and Eddie Brock, Venom, that is, continues. So, man, as like a kid growing up on the PlayStation 2 video game and then reading this so many years later and being like, oh, that's cool. Like, I remember that from the video game. That's a really cool feeling. So I do really like that portion of the Omnibus. And when I say the series dips hard, I don't mean like it becomes awful. It's just that the rest of the volumes are so good that, I don't know, it's hard for me to view this with the same sort of admiration. But where I don't like it as much is actually towards the end here. Oh yeah, this is where you also get the cataclysmic ultimatum event, which really shook up the Ultimate Universe. And that's pretty cool. But no, I want to go over here. Yeah. So this is where Marvel kind of did a weird thing with this series, where they restarted the numbering from number 1, and they changed the name from Ultimate Spider-Man to Ultimate Comics Spider-Man. And then, yeah, they started with a new number 1, and it feels kind of like a weird time jump. If you're familiar with the Mark Bagley style of artwork that I talked about before, you'll notice just a very different, for better or worse, style. Like, I don't know, I'm just not really a big fan of this sort of, it's almost manga-like style for Spider-Man here. Again, it probably works well in other series, but it's just doesn't quite float my boat here. But at the end of the day, it's still Ultimate Spider-Man. It still holds a special place in my heart, even if I don't like this second half of the book as much. And it has a welcome spot on my shelf. All right, well, Ultimate Spider-Man may have been my very first comic run, but this one contains the very first comic issue I ever read. Spider-Man, the the complete Black Costume Saga. Let's dive in. God, that cover just pops so nicely, doesn't it? We have here the standard cover to this omnibus, obviously an homage to that classic Amazing Fantasy number 15 cover, except with the black suit. There is also a direct market cover featuring the cover to Web of Spider-Man number 1, and that in its own right is a super iconic image. But I went with this because this is from Amazing Spider-Man 252. And if you've been following the channel very closely, you'll know that that was my very first issue of Amazing Spider-Man. Not an original copy, mind you. I'm not a child of the 80s. But there was when I was a kid, there was a book fair, and one of the books I picked up was the Marvel Encyclopedia, and at the back of that book was a reprint of this issue of Amazing Spider-Man. So because of that being my very first comic, I had to go with this cover just because of the personal significance that it has to me. Anyway, that's enough waffling from me. We have the spine to this omnibus. Again, an interesting choice from Marvel, doing a white spine for a Bronze Age book. It's going to look a little weird on the shelf because most of the books surrounding this title will be black spines, but I can't deny it does look really clean with that image of Black Suit Spidey down there. Yet another cover gallery. We love to see that. Oh, no way. You have the Spot in here. Man, so many interesting bits from this book. Yeah, the Spot. I first saw him in the 90s Spider-Man animated show, and I always thought he was such a cool villain because he can like make portals and jump through them and appear in different locations. I always thought he was a fun villain to fight. He would make a fun video game boss fight. Yeah, anyway, sorry. Collecting, no. Cover price, I am all over the place. $125 US and $156.25 Canadian. And this collects Amazing Spider-Man 252 to 263, Annual 18, Marvel Team Up 141 to 150, Annual number 7, Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man 90 through 100, and Annual number 4 from there, and Web of Spider-Man number 1. So that's the direct market cover you see there, Web of Spider-Man at the very end. Anyway, let's get this off and take a look under the dust jacket. Haha, there he is, the Man in Black himself, looking all intimidating on the top of that little, well, it's not really a gargoyle, but you know what I mean. Oh, such a like menacing pose. What a freaking cool design for a suit that is. Let me show you the spine. Yeah, see? Okay, so they did the black spine on the board, but then a white spine for the dust jacket. That's an interesting choice. I mean, I guess it's kind of cool that they inverted the color scheme and then you have red suit Spidey underneath. Just a bit of a strange choice. Wow. So many cool images from around this time. So I'll stretch this book and then we can take a better look. Okay, so we have a first, for me anyway, in the omnibus collecting hobby. Take a listen to this. It's like a door hinge. Wow, that might just be the squeakiest omnibus I own. But on the bright side, the binding and the eye seems pretty nice. Sewn binding and a very, very big eye there. So much, much better than the Ultimate Spider-Man omnibus that we just took a look at. Unfortunately, I can't say the page quality is much better than that book, though, because, wow, I almost picked up like 3 pages there. This is really thin. This might even be thinner than the Ultimate Spider-Man omnibus, which already wasn't great with its page quality. Oh, man. Yeah, lots and lots of page bleed. And there's going to be a lot of pretty light colors because of just, you know, the time period that this was made in. Lots of lighter colors. So, yeah. Wow. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of page bleed there. Wow, you can easily see that on camera there. Yeesh. Okay, so keep that in mind. That might bother you. But if it doesn't bother you, then more power to you. Oh, there's Puma. That's cool. A not as well-known Spider-Man villain, but he's kind of cool, I guess. Anyway, let's take a look at the board design of this book. Flip this over here. God, so squeaky. Oh, I love that artwork. That is fantastic. In terms of Bronze Age omnibuses, that might be like some of my favorite board designs I've seen. I always like a good image involving the black suit story, where it's like you have red suit Spidey and black suit Spidey in the same picture, but sort of mirrored, or he's like his shadow in this case. It's just very, very cool. Yeah, so let's take a short flip through because I've already waffled on. Oh, God. It's just like a squeaky book. I've already waffled on long enough about this book, but we start here with Amazing Spider-Man 252, which is also collected in the Spider-Man by Roger Stern omnibus. So if you want to continue the story after that omnibus, this picks up directly after that. Speaking of, I have not done a review of the Spider-Man by Roger Stern omnibus, nor have I done a review of Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 5, so I suppose I should get on that, Ah, so cool. I remember this issue exactly, reading it as a kid. My very first comic book. But anyway, this will collect the quote-unquote complete black costume saga. You could argue, well, is it really complete? Because there was a phase after this where he wore a cloth version of the black suit. If you don't know, this takes place right after Secret Wars, the original event. Spider-Man goes off to a place called Battle World with a bunch of other characters, and he gets this new black suit, which he later finds out is actually an alien organism called a symbiote. But then, eventually he removes it, and then there's some bits after this where he wears a cloth version of the black suit, so you could argue, well, this isn't the complete black costume saga, but I guess this would be a pretty massive book if they tried to include all of that. So maybe they could have called this the Alien Costume Saga instead. That's probably a bit more accurate, because they've done that for some of the, epic collections and stuff, right? I can't remember. I don't pay too much attention to epics, unfortunately. But yeah, this is pretty good. You'll get to see the origins of the black suit. Granted, it's a little different from what the black suit has become today. So obviously, in modern times, we're used to the black suit being, like I said, an alien organism. That's still true here. But we're also used to seeing it negatively impact Spider-Man and his behavior. He becomes almost an evil version of himself because the suit just keeps trying to influence him more and more and makes him darker and darker. That's not really so much the case here, from what I understand. At the time, it was just sort of like, hey, let's change up his costume, but a lot of the time you're just getting the same sort of Spidey stories. The whole behavioral changes didn't really start until the 90s Spider-Man show experimented with that when it did its interpretation of the black suit story.
And I'm gonna tear you limb from limb! Let's get this over with. I said, come on! I am invincible!
So, more praise for the 90s Spider-Man show. I'm always happy to shill for that show here. But no, this is really cool. It's been a while since I've read a Bronze Age book, so this definitely gets me in that mood. It gets me excited. Yeah, and it's just cool to fill in another gap, right after the Roger Stern omnibus. So, pretty cool. But I do have to address the elephant in the room here. Let's have a look. This book has been known to have a pretty bad, bad, I guess, is up to interpretation, but there is a potential misprint in this book. Yeah, okay, so page 456, we have this panel here. Now let's find out. Oof, yeah, okay. So that page is duplicated. You have page 456, which this is the correct spot for it. And then you have a duplicate of it on page 461, which is taking up the page that is supposed to be here. It's replacing it. Now, I believe you can reach out to the retailer from which you bought this book if you choose to buy it. And they should be able to send you a PDF of the missing page. So you're not still missing content. But I just wanted to let you guys know that it does seem to be an issue, a pretty widespread issue. So there's a fair chance your book will have this too if you choose to pick it up. Does it bother me that much? Not really. Like, I'll probably just look up the missing page online and read it that way. It's just one page, but it's a little unfortunate to see this sort of stumble in quality control. So hopefully they can improve that in the future and push out more quality books. And the final book in this haul, our manic moon-based hero with a midnight mission. How's that for some alliteration? Moon Knight by Jed MacKay, Omnibus. This is a big one. Let's dive into it. All right, Moon Knight by Jed MacKay. You know it must be a big deal considering I've placed it ahead of 2 other Spider-Man books in this haul. So we have here the standard cover by Greg Capullo, of all people. Heck yes, drawing Moon Knight. Look at that. I love this. The like ethereal glow that he has around his cape is just super duper cool. There is also a direct market cover. Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head who it's by. It might be Arthur Adams, but I'm not sure. That could be wrong. But yeah, very, very cool. Let's take a look at the spine. That's awesome. You got a little Starry Night design here with a pretty menacing image of Moon Knight there. Very nice. And then the back, yet again. Wow, this is some stellar artwork, no pun intended. This creative team is absolutely killing it. Well, that bodes well. We have a cover price of 100 US, 125 Canadian. Once again, all the books in this haul I got from in-stock trades. This one, during release week, was 48% off, so that's what I paid. This collects the 2021 Moon Knight series by Jed MacKay, number 1 through 30, Devil's Reign Moon Knight Annual, number 1, and material from Avengers, number 45, and Moon Knight Annual, number 1, the 2023 one. So you have the 2022 Annual, and you have the 2023 Annual collected here as well. Let's flip this sucker over and take a look under the dust jacket. Come on. Whoa. Sorry, guys. I just have to, like, stand back and admire this. Holy... I'm trying very hard not to swear right now. What? That's insane. Oof. Is this Capucho's art? I'm not sure. The artist who does the interiors. I'm not sure. I would love to know who the artist of this is. This is insane. Yeah, let me take a quick stretch and then we can look at this wraparound because I really, really want to. Okay, so very promising so far. A nice big eye there. Don't worry about that little bit of paper in there. That's nothing to worry about. But a nice big eye. Binding looks really good. It's worth mentioning that I believe the Ultimate Spider-Man and Black Costume Saga books were both printed at the iMac printer or eMac printer in Turkey. This is also printed in Turkey, but this is at the Mega printer. So it's a different printer. And from what I can tell, the page quality is significantly better than those other 2 books we just took a look at. It's thicker. God, there's some, just a second, there's some spectacular artwork going on in here. That's very unique. It's so like angular. It almost reminds me of like a Lamborghini's body lines, with how like so many sharp angles and shapes there are in Moon Knight here. A very unique style. It reminds me a little bit of what you might see from Jock or Dustin Nguyen. It's got that kind of angular, aggressive look to it, but I love the colors. Everything's like bathed in this blue washed out light, and you got some like streaks here. Wow. So like, not even talking about the story, this is looking really, really eye-catching. Let's take a look. Wow, I'm getting distracted by the interior now. Let's take a look at that wraparound cover. 'Cause, oh my God, that's gotta be one of my favorite wraparound covers I've seen this year for a book. Holy crap. Again, if you know who the artist of this is, let me know. I'm not 100% sure if this is penciled by Capuccio or not, who is the artist who was on this series, but God, that's beautiful. Whew. Well, I already feel good about putting this at the top of my anticipated list. Yeah, who would have thunk it? Moon Knight's been kind of a sleeper hit for me. It all started like a couple years ago. For me, I enjoyed the Disney Plus show. I am one of those people who enjoyed that show. So I decided to try out some of Moon Knight's books to learn a little bit more about him. So I started with the 2 Bronze Age Omnis, Moon Knight Omnibus 1 and 2. I skipped over the Mark Spector omnibuses from the 90s just because I haven't heard good things about the quality of the stories in that. I jumped straight to the Moon Knight by Benson, Houston, and Hurwitz omnibus, and I really enjoyed that too. So now we have the most recent Moon Knight series, Moon Knight 2021 by Jed MacKay. And if you're not familiar with Jed MacKay, well, first of all, go check out my previous video, my review of the Black Cat by Jed MacKay omnibus, because that book was amazing. But Jed MacKay seems to be what I've been referring to as like the breakout star at Marvel in the past few years. He's been putting out some really quality stuff. So Black Cat, obviously, and then this Moon Knight run, which gets very high praise consistently. And then I'm pretty sure he was, or maybe even still is, on Avengers. So he's being put on some heavy-hitting titles now. So that just tells you the quality that you can expect here. It's not just anybody that gets to write Avengers, for example. But anyway, Moon Knight himself is a really interesting character. A lot of the time, at first glance, people might just be like, oh, he's just Marvel's Batman. And I get it. Like, your knee-jerk reaction is kind of to go there because, like, he's always out at night. He's got this cape thing. He's got gadgets. But Moon Knight is quite fundamentally different from Batman in a lot of ways. So he's... How do I even summarize it quickly? The core of the character is that he has these multiple personalities that he goes in and out of. He has Mark Spector, a mercenary. He has Stephen Grant, a sort of playboy, millionaire type of person, bachelor type of character. He has Jake Lockley, a street-level taxi driver. He has Moon Knight. And in recent years, I believe a new personality has been added as well, Mr. Knight. So Moon Knight's actually cycling through 5 different personalities at any given time, depending on what the situation needs. Sometimes the line between the personalities gets a little bit blurred and he kind of loses himself a little bit. He's always interacting with this deity, this Egyptian moon god known as Khonshu, who for a while was like the basis of his powers, but they have a bit of a rocky relationship. Moon Knight's not really a traditional hero. He's got a borderline addiction to violence, and he's not so great with, keeping up social relationships and stuff like that. And he's just a very he's got a very unorthodox style. He doesn't approach things the way that many other heroes would. The example I always love to refer to comes from that Houston Omnibus I referenced earlier, where there's this villain called Taskmaster who is able to copy the moves of anybody he observes. So he's always an interesting villain to write, because Taskmaster, you're like, oh god, how do you beat somebody who can copy your every move? So how does Moon Knight solve that problem? Well, he doesn't. He just finds out where Taskmaster is and crashes a helicopter into into the room where Taskmaster is, and problem solved. Like, the absolute wildest, most like nutty things you'll see Moon Knight do. He's not your traditionally apt martial artist. He'll easily take several punches if it means he can just land some of his own. Like, he's pretty, what's the word? Not clumsy, but like that sort of style. Careless, maybe, is the word I'm thinking of. Gung-ho. There's a word I'm thinking of, but it's not coming to me. But man, guys, look at this artwork in this book. That's incredible. And what's even more exciting is that, yeah, Moon Knight's been around since like the late 70s, early 80s. And yet, this run seems to be regarded as his best by the Moon Knight community. And that's crazy. This came out in 2021. The fact that a character that's been around that long is having some of his best material being published now, that's awesome. I love that. I love seeing that. In the mainstream, comics might seem like, have the reputation of being like, oh, who reads those anymore? It's a dying art form. But heck no, man. It makes me so happy to see that there's some really high quality books being put out today. So hopefully the hobby will keep going strong, the art form will keep going strong, and we can get more amazing stories. I mean, fingers crossed that I enjoy this. I'll try to be as unbiased as I can. I obviously still have to read it for myself. But, it's just really promising to see. So I'm really excited about this, and that's why it's at the top of my list. But there you have it, friends. That brings us to the end of this month's haul. So now it's your turn to chime in down in the comments. Let me know what you think about any of these books. If you're picking any of them up, if you have any questions, or if you have any opinions you'd like to share about some of the stories. No spoilers, please. I still have to read most of these books myself. But yeah, let's have a discussion down in the comments down below. But thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I hope to catch you in another video, hopefully pretty soon. So you have yourself a great day. I've been Superfly Comics Guy, and until next time, you keep reading. Bye-bye, guys.